Everybody. Today I have a very special guest, Rabbi Reuven Flamer, and it's been a long time since we've connected. I don't even know how many decades, but one
You know,
time.
last each other?
What?
I
Go
remember the
ahead.
last time we saw each other.
You remember
Can
the
you?
last time?
Yeah, the last time we saw each other was at the organic fair that I made in Westchester.
Oh yeah, that was how long ago was that?
A long time ago.
Was that underneath the dam? Was that
You,
your fair? Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
yeah,
that giant looming thing, and it was drizzling.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
You had an
Yeah.
interesting
Okay. And then I
story.
remember the time when you interviewed me on your TV show. Do you still have a TV show?
It was off for a while. Yeah.
What is the theme of your show?
Well, I have a few things going. It's called Chabad Life. I have a theory about Chabad. Um,
Okay.
my theory is that Hasidim don't need to be convinced that the Rebbe is who he is, whatever that means to anybody. We have to be convinced who we are.
I love that.
So
I really
Chabad,
love that.
so I'm big into bringing out what everyone, like you, everyone else is doing, so to speak, and where they're coming from. And I even have this podcast that I bring with a friend of mine, Zacharia, um,
Street for bringing.
and we talk about the struggles that we're going through as Hasidim, but we don't talk about the Rebbe. Now I know that we also have to, I'm not this kashrus thing and so forth, but that's my thing.
Yeah. So there are people who listen to this live stream who have no idea what Chabad is, no idea what Rebbe is, no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
So I'm assuming though that even though you're street for bringing, like what is it for bringing? Your that whole thing, the inner struggles, how do we know who we are, how can we understand who we are and connect to who we are? I think that's universal. I think that's what some people are calling the Great Awakening.
100%. I agree with you.
So talk about that. And when you got that way. I mean, we both just true confessions, back in the day we were both kind of spiritual activists trying to catalyze the redemption in whatever ways we could think of. And I think, I don't know, I can't speak for you, Reuven, but maybe we've been on sort of parallel paths that after a while, when you can't make the whole world change from the outside, at least in my case, I started to look inside. What can I control inside? What can I transform inside? What can I redeem inside? And that's sort of been my trajectory since then for quite a while now. And the
Yeah.
inside does project to the outside. So yeah, if you could speak about that in your own experience.
You know, I guess I'm gonna have to give more content, but Chabad is this organization on one hand, but it's also a mindset. Chabad itself stands for the three parts of the mind.
It's a global Jewish Hasidic
Right. So
organization, network, movement.
it's
Yeah.
a mystical background coming from the Baal Shem Tov, who came, we go into the whole history. I don't know if that's necessary. I think, if I can say this, that mystical background has become so de rigueur, has become so commonplace. Not so much the bells and whistles, but the ideas. We kind of lost the mysticism behind it. The mysticism is just for that a very different perspective on what we're looking at. And I think the uniqueness of what I'm referred to when I say Chabad is that the perspective is totally internal, creates the external. And rather than the external should impact me, my internal reality is to impact the external reality. And that's Mashiach, and that's this what you call the global awakening. And I think that circles back to what I was saying about the emphasis on us, not on, in this case, Rebbe, And I think that's where the world is at right now, and it shows up in a lot of different ways. Struggling
Self,
with this issue, internal
sorry?
impact, that it shows up in many different ways of the fight between the paradigm of the internal external versus that the external is going to bring me to a place that I want to get to.
And when did you make this switch? And if you can talk about things that maybe sources or whatever inspired you to lean more deeply into this, or maybe it was personal. And how you see that also, if I could just throw this in, how you see that corollary that when you change something on the inside, it changes the world around you. I mean, I see that in so many ways, but I'd love to hear your experience.
You know, first of all, this may sound a little odd looking at me, but I don't like religion.
So many rabbis tell
And,
me that.
and to me, religion is, what are you going to do for me? And the religious structure loves that.
It was just 13 minutes into this, just when you said that. What are you going to do for me? Speaking in the voice like God or the religion itself. What are you going to do for me? Who's saying that?
I mostly, if you're separating the two, which is common, it's the structure. You know, it's when I was living in Westchester where we first met, there was a woman there who owned a bakery, and she was a Holocaust survivor. So she had her issues, understandably, and her name was Veronica, very special lady. And so she went to holidays for past Switzerland, closed up her bakery, of course, and went there. And she came back, and I said, Veronica, how was your holiday? And she, in her typical way of saying things, she said, Rabbi, I had a great time in Switzerland, and the snow was wonderful, and everything was fantastic. The food was fantastic. The people was nice, except for one. So what's that? She says, wherever I go, with me. And I never forgot that she told me that.
That was wise. Wow.
What?
That was
Yeah. So
wise words from Veronica.
yeah, a little pain. And but the point is that I think a lot of people embrace, and maybe this is natural and it's fine, but they embrace this religious experience as what is it going to do for me? And it gets sour if you don't move to the other direction that we're talking about.
Oh, you're saying the individual is asking what it's going to do for me? I thought you were saying that the religious structure or
Well, they play on each other.
community. I'm sorry?
They
Once more?
play on each other.
Yeah.
You know,
So you're saying it's a self-centered, self-absorbed point of view?
well, that I mean, a judgmental tinge, but yes, from our own point of view, anyways, in the end. But yeah, it's I go to one of the amazing shuls, synagogues that I've ever been in, as synagogues go, and it's kind of a knockoff in 2023 of Haight Ashbury in the House of Love and Prayer with Shlomo Carlebach. Except that I'm the guy who knows what that is, and everybody else is like half my age, and they're trying to recreate. If they know that they're doing this, they're trying to recreate the Haight Ashbury House of Love and Prayer of 1960s, and that's what this synagogue is. And they love to sing like these songs that Lord make me higher, get me high, get me high. And in that vein, where that I think is coming from, a lot of people is they're so thirsty that they're looking for that water that they perceive is going to come from the outside. And the Messianic Mashiach reality is that it doesn't work that way. It's all about you. I don't mean in an egotistical way. Your spirituality.
I'm sorry. If I cut you off, just jump back in. Sorry about that.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said we didn't used to know that, and I'm not sure that it was always true. I'm not sure that there was not. I'm not at all sure that this is not a brand new phase. I mean, the Rebbe talked about this in one sikha when he talked about in Vayishlach of. If, this is a little inside comment just to the guest, but of Nun Beis, he talked about how all the sparks have been elevated now, and now we have to do a new service of Yichud Yichudim, not just Bered Netzutzos. So there's, I don't know if you want to speak to that at all, but there's some, I think that there's a change in our relationship with God, profound change, at least in potential, as well as our relationship with ourselves. I don't think that this was always accessible.
Agreed.
I don't think that people were missing the mark. I think that we had a certain long period of time when things were meant to run in a general sense, in a particular way, and now new doors have opened. And when new doors open, you have to walk through them.
Agreed. I think that I'm 100% agree with you. I think the shift between one stage to the other is a little difficult for some people.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly for the structure. One of the questions that in preparation for this you asked me is like, what do I see going on in the world today, and how does this tie in? The way I look at things in the world is I have this belief. I don't know if I can probably back it up theologically, but we'll say it's my hallucination. It's one of the languages that my mentor teaches me. So my hallucination is that anything that takes place in the world, outside world, is because we haven't owned it inside.
Anything negative
or positive.
Oh,
Mostly it comes out as negative. So therefore, it's just a son of people. So when I think about what's going on around us, I think the word that encapsulates what's mostly going on around us in the culture today, at least in the West, is confusion. We're totally confused who we are. So men think they're women and women think they're men. We're literally, I run a company that does organic certification for the Department of Agriculture and USDA here in America.
Heart K.
What?
It's the Heart K, right?
No.
Natural foods.
That's my kosher symbol is the apple. No, we do certification for organic food, food, just organic food.
Wow.
And a fairly company contacted us recently, and I'm used to this. At the bottom of the signature line was all the pronouns that person was goes by. Okay, so I don't want to get into the wokeism and the non-wokeism, but I'm just saying that the people are struggling definition of who they are. Unprecedented. What's that all about? Why is that happening now? The sect suggests that Baruchnia, spiritually speaking, is if you don't understand that this idea that it is internal affects the extra power is with you, and all of creation rests on you to come to its fruition, then you are going to be you have doubt of who you are, and this is what we have to own, and it comes with a lot of implications when you own that role. So other things going on, at least in where I am, there's a lot of talk about trauma. Right, trauma is a big
Charma.
Trauma.
Okay,
Trauma,
like a new word.
Right, it's pain and suffering and so forth, and it's real. And one of the corollaries of that is validation. Right, validation is a big one. Worthiness. If you don't feel worthy, you probably have some kind of trauma. Worthiness means
people need to feel seen. Somebody needs to witness on some level, I think. But okay, continue.
I'm saying that this is one of the common theme in the culture that's real. I'm not saying it's not real.
Yeah.
And that is another indication of the individual not feeling who they are. Because from God's point of view, everything is about you.
So my trauma keeps me from being myself, living my real life. Is that what you're saying?
I
In
think
terms of
that's
people
what
not they are?
saying that. All I'm saying is true, I think, but what I'm saying is why is this such a common topic today? They didn't speak about. It's funny, they didn't speak about trauma in 1960s in the Jewish community, years after the Holocaust, which was the biggest
Yeah,
historical trauma ever in life.
it's true.
Maybe 20, 30 years later, we're why now? So it's the same stream on energy of who am I? Am I worthy? Why was I hit on? Did I go through this? How do I fit in? And most of our answers from around us. So I go back to it that in Koyach Nissen, which was this very the 28th day of Nissen in the month that we're in, many years ago in Tafshin Nunalev, where he said in 1991, he said, here's the greatest leader ever in Jewish history, just about, I'll be politically correct. And he says, I've done all I can, and you are still, the words he used in translating it loosely is, you are still in a spiritual prison in your own spiritual transformation. And you're looking for me to take you out of that space. And that was the first thing he spoke about when he became a Rebbe, right? Was don't look to get to schlep you out, to grab you out. You're gonna do it yourself. What a message.
And I will help. And I will help.
Of course, he's gonna guide and he's gonna teach, and he's gonna
Yeah.
be there as your speak next to you. And it's about you. The power lies in you. So how come I don't feel that power? That's, to me, that's exile, that's Galus, that's Egypt, as we speak about in terms of Passover. And that's what we're struggling with.
Hang on, that is the most important question, at least in this conversation, and one of the most important questions in the universe, actually. If I'm truly infinite, whatever that means, if I'm truly godly, if I'm truly here with divine power, if I truly generate reality, co-create reality, however, whatever the words are that people like to use, I'm just really repeating what you said. How is it that I feel so helpless, so confused, so overwhelmed, have no idea which direction to go in? Yeah, you can't just say that that's a difficult question. Like, what is your answer for yourself? When you sit in your, and when you meditate, when you pray, when you talk to your closest friends, what's the answer? What pathways forward or openings are you finding in that wall? Because it's like we're living in an opposite world.
What do you mean?
In a lot of ways. That's one of the ways.
What do you mean an opposite world?
That reality, what reality actually is, what we experience as reality is actually we perceive it and experience it, see it as the opposite of what the Torah tells it is. Like, ein od milvado, there's nothing here but God. Well, I don't see God, I see everything but God. It's like an inverse, it's like a photographic negative, or I am literally the world that says bishvili. Every person has to say that the world was created for me. Every person is a complete world. One person can change the world. The Torah is full of this. But we don't see that in ourselves. We see ourselves as more or less helpless and tiny and vulnerable in an extremely large, complicated, hostile world, where what can one person do even, in his own life, much less in the world. So that is like the flip. It's like a photographic negative of reality. And it can't just be that we have to struggle through. There must be some way to actually flip into actual correct vision.
Well, there's definitely that's true. The question I would ask you by correct vision, do you expect to see the world to disappear and see only God?
No, I expect the world to become more and more transparent so that God shines through everything, including my own consciousness. And I do experience that on the level that I do. I get every now and then I hit a wall and I work with it. I pray, I cry, whatever I do, and I fall through. That's what it feels like. And all of a sudden I see things, experience things, God,
And
and
all of a sudden,
certainly,
the wall became part of the ability to get what the objective was.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it
So
does seem to work like that. It does seem to work that pressure seems to produce an opening where there wasn't one before. I think we can put pressure on ourselves, not to get lost there, but I don't think we have to necessarily wait for pressure from the outside.
well, God always ups the game.
Yeah, that's true too.
So more, the more it was kind of, I don't know if the word is sophisticated, or I don't know what the right word is. The more talented, you go to the gym, and the more you advance in your ability at the gym, the higher weights you've got to struggle through the lift. So I think that there is that concept that the more you tackle within your own life, different things happen to you that you have to go and tackle things, and and they're a little more difficult than before. So there's always walls. But again, do you look, like even my question before, do you expect that when you're going to look for God and see God, that the world's going to disappear? Or is it going to, or so you're in a sense, if you, that's what most people think. I'm going to go out and I'm going to leave this place to get to a much higher, blissful place, right? I do this breathing exercises, holotropic breathing every morning, and one of the guys I've noticed that I listen to while I'm doing it says this blissful moment of being out of and out of. No, 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 no. Our blissful moment is being in, not out. So the answer in the end ends up to be again you. Am I going to feel? Am I going to see from my perspective what the world is? The world's not going to let you in on the secret. Because the world, at least, because it can, but I have to qualify that. But generally, it's not going to. You have to come from the inside out, and then the world will show itself to be what it is. The Zohar calls the world, on one hand, the Zohar calls the world a world of lies, right? Alma de Shikra. What's the lie? That it looks like it's unto itself.
Right.
So God's not there. When you say unto itself, that's the big lie. What's ironic, so to speak, in Hasidus is, to me, this is the biggest, and actually the crux of a lot of what the Rebbe says in the last number of years about Mashiach, and that is, why does the world look that way? How does it have the gall, the chutzpah to look that way? But how does it have the ability to look that way? And the answer is because it comes from the deepest place within God. Just like God himself, nothing created it. The world God's target of creation, not the spiritual planes in between, so to speak, him and us, but actually the physical plane, right? We're down here. Doing a kindness to somebody is more important than all of your theory and academics and meditation. So the Maisu interaction is the main thing. So it turns out that the world therefore takes on the same texture, if you wish, as God himself, that it looks made itself. It comes from a place from that God that nothing made. He is who he is because of who he is. So put it down to the individual about where do you find your godliness? When you out of your body or in your body? Your soul and your thoughts? Or when you look at your hand? Because when Mashiach comes fully, it says that the body is going to give life to the soul, not the other way around, right?
Right.
So that's why I say, how is it people are struggling about what gender they are? There's nothing more basic than that. Oh, mentally or emotionally, they're saying they don't know who they are. Okay, but that means you're disconnected from your body. And you don't understand the holiness of a body with neshama. That's again, am I worthy? Who am I? Well, I'm here. And you see that in Jewish law about putting people, God forbid, to death early, or those kinds of considerations, that the body is sacrosanct, that you break Sabbath, you eat on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, if there's an issue of life and death for the body. But we don't. So our center, as the body being the center in a holy way, is where we want to get to, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think of it is the body has the potential to hold the conscious or experience the consciousness of God's essence. The soul has the ability to experience the consciousness of God's light. So obviously, yeah, the body comes from a deeper place, and that's why it shows up as existing and hiding other things that actually exist, like the Creator. But when you talk about this, or when you live this, what's that like for you? Like, I have a little bit of, I'll be very like religiously incorrect and say that when I hear people say what matters most is being kind to another person or doing a physical mitzvah, I get a negative reaction to that. Not because kindness isn't ultimately important, or that mitzvahs aren't like from a place above any of our ability to understand the divine will that transforms reality. Those things are true. But I think that when people say that, and I'm assuming you're not saying this, but I think when people say those things, often they're diminishing exactly what you're here talking about, that we are literally creating reality. And as we expand our awareness of that and who we are and what we are and what this world is actually made of, we gain the ability to experience the deeper dimensions of what's sitting right in front of us. It's not that this world isn't real, and it's not that it is real in a complete sense. We're living in multiple dimensions. And the dimension, and the ultimate deepest dimension, is God, Him itself, whatever. And the most superficial dimension is obviously just the physical world. And even beyond that, the narrative world. My guest yesterday was an economist who talked about derivatives a lot. And I just, for the first time, realized that derivative means you're representing something with something else. So I guess you could have the physical world, your story about life could be representing what's actually happening in life, even on the physical. So that would be the most superficial level, or the surface level. But I mean, this is my belief and my practice, that the deeper I can cut through that, the more and also the more of the deep Torah that I learned, that literally seems to open and transform my brain wiring, my receptors to deeper reality, and meditation and breathing. And, you talked about holotropic breathing. It seems like what is actually here on the deeper levels, we get to interact with, we can feel, see, sense, work with. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about something else?
I'm not sure if I'm getting what you're asking about.
When you say we create our reality, are you talking about, you've emphasized the body. You said that the most important thing is to be kind to someone. I'm not disagreeing that that's extremely important thing, but as long as we remain in an external consciousness, we're going to need to be kind to people, because the world is a harsh place. We're looking for redemption where the world is not a harsh place anymore, where it's an incredibly beautiful divine place with every kind of good that a soul and body could desire. And that will be the path to godliness instead of suffering. To me, that's the big change in redemption when it concludes.
Agreed. That's for sure. But first of all, what I meant when I said the example of giving tzedakah, to charity to someone, doing a kindness to someone, as opposed to thinking about it and rejoicing,
in the
concept of it. I'm not saying a lot of people use that, saying, that's the most important thing in life, is to be kind. You don't have to eat kosher or something like that. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I didn't mean that. I don't mean kindness versus a mitzvah. I mean, it is crucially important in my worldview, and also what I have learned from, whatever deep delving I've done into Chassidus and what I see in the world around me. We are going through a state change. It's not just that we're becoming better, nicer people, prevailing on ourselves to try harder and be less egotistical, That's that's the struggle of the Beinoni, I guess. That's the struggle where we're constantly fighting with ourselves. But as we gain deeper consciousness, we have the ability to perceive reality on a different level, and then it's not a struggle.
I would ask you back, because I know where you're coming from in general. I would ask you, how did the Rebbe say that we're in the times of Mashiach when there's so much evil?
Well, actually, specifically, I happen to have been alerted way back in the day to a particular discourse of the Rebbe from 1963. In case anyone's interested, it's Balak, the Parshas Balak Daled. There are four of them. Anyway, there, the Rebbe specifically talks about how there are two stages of Geula. It's one of the most fascinating sichas I've ever learned, and I've learned it and taught it. I don't even know how many times. I can't count how many times. But there, the Rebbe talks specifically. He quotes a prophet, Micha, who describes a time in the future where a time in the past. I guess I don't know if it's well. The Rebbe says it refers to the future. It's the Haftarah for Balak, where Micha talks about how there will be the remnants of the Jewish people will be surrounded by many nations to the extent that lo yikabel ish, we won't be able to put our hope in man. We won't be able to depend upon people. And the Rebbe talks about how this is the first stage of redemption. He explicitly describes that in the first stage of the messianic redemption, Geula, there will be increased evil, not only surrounding the Jewish people, but throughout the world, and not only outside of the Jewish people, but within the Jewish people themselves. And the Rebbe says in so many words that the evil will be so extreme, so strong that we won't be able to get rid of it by ourselves. I mean, look around. That we will need. Sorry?
So let me ask you this. How do you understand why it has to be that way?
So the Rebbe explains that the purpose is to catalyze us into letting go of the laws of nature and the relationship with God within those laws of nature that we've lived with, and create a new relationship. He talks about it in Chassidus terms from Mamani to Soviet. Sorry?
That's the way to get out of it.
No, he says that's the purpose of the increased darkness. He said this is explicit. The Rebbe says this. That's the purpose of the increased darkness. It seems, I mean, we hear all of the analogies of the mashalim of the olive oil squeezed from the oil, that you shine when you're squeezed. This whole, but you see this in natural processes also. That story of the butterfly, that some guy had mercy on the butterfly that was trying to struggle out of the cocoon, and he cut the cocoon and the butterfly couldn't fly because it had to squeeze the liquid out of its wings. There is something about the ego or the body. There's a complex between, even though the body comes from such a holy source, the highest can fall the lowest. So when the body's co-opted by the ego, they go together. And there's something very much when we're in the survival mode, or even the comfort mode, that we do not want to rock the boat. The ego anyway doesn't want anything to change. That's its main MO. Everything has to stay the same. What?
Didn't you just before, I don't remember the exact words, about the world getting to a place of, we'll call it, no evil? Why isn't it that way?
Why wasn't it created that way?
It isn't. No. Why isn't it now that way? That's why I asked the question. In other words, how do you? If I see that you're referring to, I just learned it for the first time a few weeks ago. There's another concept of when the Jews left Egypt, they ran out. So why'd they run if they were given permission to leave by the head?
The evil was running out.
Says that because they still carried all of their, and I'll add this in my own words, all of their trauma, all of their feelings, all of their attachments, all of their, with all of the limitations that they had been living in with.
Yes.
The Morale of Prague is famous for saying, and if you think about it and you picture it, the Morale of Prague lived in the 1600s when there was blood libels and people were saying we're killing Jews, thinking that they were taking blood of Christians that they killed and putting into their matzahs, and they had no citizenship, and so on and so on and so forth. And he asked, how do you celebrate freedom of Passover in such a state of reality like that? And he answers and he says, sometimes a slave is freed and he still thinks like a slave. So a poor person who wins the lottery doesn't think like a wealthy person who made it on his own. And
Right.
so they ran out of Egypt with all of our stuff still attached to us. So how isn't that like a cognitive emotional dissonance here? Like, what's going on? On one hand, I'm out. On the other hand, I'm in.
Yeah.
I think that's today. That's that's what I'm saying. External is yes, there, and it's very, very difficult because if and there is a lot. I mean, in Eretz Israel, in Israel, you're seeing it daily. There's a lot of pain and suffering. In certain, there's terrorism and there's all the confusion that's going on there with this new reform of
totalitarianism too.
And then we had COVID for 3 years. I'm sure you've talked about that. So yeah, it's again, if we're looking for the world to give us an indication that things are wonderful, we may fall short. And I'm not saying live in a bubble and live in a fantasy. I'm saying it's all going to depend. It's the old story of is the cup half full or the cup half empty? It sounds, everybody probably has heard that, and it sounds kind of trite, but what it's really saying is your consciousness depends on you.
Yeah, I think it's also saying this is fascinating what you're talking about now. It's also saying, the cup half empty is pulling you back toward a past state of scarcity. The cup half full is pulling you toward forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I understand you just interviewed about economics, and the Rebbe said, and it points to the Rambam, Maimonides, and says a messianic world has wealth. A messianic world, there's no jealousy, there's no war because everybody has what they need. And all of a sudden now we're standing on people screaming, saying we're about to have a total economic collapse. Yeah. And maybe we are. Now the question is, question is, why is that happening? What is God telling us what to do with that?
All right, let's hear what you have to say on that.
I mean, I have no concept of money, so you have to understand that I'm like, don't ask. So I'm not coming from an academic viewpoint. I'm saying where I hold in myself on trust, security, and as you said before, scarcity. Do I feel in myself abilities, in what I can have, in what I deserve? Is it in a place of scarcity, or is myself wealth? That's the famous mimers of the Hasidic discourse has on that is powerful. Time of Passover is powerful. I think of again a person who's poor and has that impact of his culture and wins the lottery may not ever come out of his mindset.
Yeah, that's what they say. They say usually the lottery money is gone within a couple of years.
Let's flip the equation and say a person who understands their own inner wealth is never poor, even if all they have is 10 cents in their pocket.
Yeah, but you're not pointing toward an either or. You're pointing toward a first second, or because then. You're just that a person who has this, because we know we're moving toward a time of, we know that we have the opportunity for a time of great abundance. These are prophecies. We're in the era. great wealth, great
Well,
health,
I'm
great
going to
health,
suggest you
life.
in prophecies. I'm going to suggest to you the same way that you can look at the half full, half empty, is the same way you can look at scarce abundance. At the moment,
Yeah.
what you sound
Yeah, I'm a little bit, I really appreciate on a personal level, find extreme merit in what you're saying. I do have a, yes, I guess a person could feel abundant if he has 10 cents in his pocket, if he's self-sufficient and he can live off the land and, he's mobile but that's not the world that I'm promoting. But I guess maybe it does have to be, maybe, are you suggesting that we're heading toward that experience in order to pare us down to where we're just fine and completely rooted in the ultimate goodness of and worthiness of ourselves in our life, having
the
nothing?
way the Rebbe explains it, where I'm coming from is, let's talk about wealth and poverty on a non-economic state at first,
Okay.
and that is, he says a very fascinating idea, and it comes from the Rebbe Rashab from generations before, and he says that if you when you're basing your reality on what your mind convinces you of, okay, your mind tells you this is the way it should be, and you live by that proposal, so to speak, you're poor. Why are you poor? So he says, in the icon, if you wish, of poverty and wealth is giver, take a receiver and giver. So if me is and feel just like the outside world can impact me, and I'm looking for a good world to impact me in a good way, my mind could tell me X, Y, and Z.
100%.
That makes me feel better. So I'm receiving from my mind. Therefore, I'm poor. Even further than that. He says, not only are you poor because you're a receiver, you're poor because at any given moment, something can knock your mind right off the plate. You could be thinking, let's take I like to think of it in terms of, you can't blame people who came out of the Holocaust thinking that human beings are evil.
Yeah.
But they could have been people who were learning every day what we're talking about in the same vein, saying humans are holy and special and so on and so forth. And then they go through the Holocaust and they come out saying, forget about it. I understand that. But that is an extreme example for my mind knew it.
So you're
Then you
saying
have,
we have ultimate authority over the world,
you have
ultimate
ultimate
authority.
over your world. When we say your mindset and your perspective, there's a little piece there that a lot of people forget or don't focus on, and that is, it's not about your mind's perspective. It's you having your mind have a perspective.
Mm.
Don't lose the core. One of the I found, recently actually, is why is going to my world. Why is easy and natural and doing exercise so powerful?
So what? Sorry.
So powerful. Eating
Powerful. Okay.
healthy, not taking that second piece of cake, and doing exercise instead of sitting on your couch. Most people will probably approach it to being, oh, it's bad to eat cake, or I'm going to get fat, so let me go. No, that's not what the power of it is all about. The power is, I take control of the closest thing that I live as, which is in my body. I have control and I have management over my body.
Mm.
It's not about the cake. It's not about the evilness of the cake, even though one could come to that from that position. But it's, do I honor my, what do I choose? What do I want? You know, one of the things, and that's where the power is. So when the Rebbe speaks about geula, redemption, and the opposite of redemption, it's where you choose to be. You know, what you find in the, let's go back to that original idea we brought up, and that is the stance of religiosity in the Jewish community. I can't speak of others. Was protectionism. In other words, there's a big bad world out there, and the more we can isolate, the safer we're going to be, and the more conservation success we will have.
Which was true in the past, don't you think?
Let's say it was, yes.
Okay.
But we don't have that today.
Yeah.
Because on your little phone, and of course there's the isolationists who say, get rid of those phones and only have, and have no, be a phone-free world. And
Right.
they're a little naive to even that, but let's not go there. On your little phone, here we are talking. You're in Svas, I'm in Pomona, New York, and we're having a conversation. There's somebody from Australia listening to us. It's an amazing world. Choices are more in 10 minutes in this world than maybe our great grandfathers and great grandmothers had a lifetime.
Without a doubt.
A lot of people find that very scary and very threatening. If your idea of the wagons and protect what's inside the wagons around inside that circle, then you're going to have a real hard time because the wall is permeable now. It's infinite. Okay. So that's one way of looking at it, and there's a tension there. I'm not suggesting go to the bad places that those choices give you. But what I will say is, what does that say about what we have the power to do? We have the power, because we're being asked to work with this, we have the power to make the best choice than ever before. So instead of screaming at our children, don't choose that negative thing over there. Be careful and don't go there. Say, you are powerful. Where do you feel your own sense of choice, of power? Okay, so then I'm going to go to the gym. Not because fat and I don't know, whatever reason other person will go is your enemy, because I choose to. I choose geula. I choose redemption. The Rebbe is basically saying to us, we have before. I would agree with you. In the past, perhaps they had to believe in redemption, wait for redemption. Obviously, the big change of what the Rebbe said is, we're here and you can choose it, you could live it, and everyone looked at basically around the world and said, what? And that's the opposite of victimhood. A victim doesn't have choice. A prisoner doesn't. And it's amazing because this is where we go full circle again. We have the choice what to look at, where to go, how to think, how to react. I love Viktor Frankl. I'm sure you've touched on him once in a while. And
I don't talk about him, but yes, his most famous quote.
Thing about between every event, there's a reaction, but there's a space in between. And that's your choice. That's geula.
Okay, so this is I'm following with a lot of attention. What you're saying is very powerful. It's true. And you're talking about the ultimate personal sovereignty and free choice as being geula. And I'm assuming you would say that I have really two questions. One, are you saying that this is the path to the actual redemption of the world that we are also waiting for or here to facilitate or to co-create a world of no suffering, no death? Truth revealed are you saying that this is the path? Secondly, what is how do you navigate that moment of choice between the stimulus and response in your own life? And how do you up level that process?
Yeah, maybe I'm still poor, so it's actual.
It's a start.
Yeah. Is it a path? You can look at it as a path, but I think and it does have an impact, but I think you have to look at it as it's in the here and now. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm asked to live like. And that's different.
Yeah, you keep up the ante on this freedom thing. I hear.
It's not a means to an end.
And
it says
now we're moving into the paradox.
Yeah, there's a paradox there. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says, Ezehu Gibor, who is powerful? He who is kovish as Yitzro. He
conquers himself. He masters himself.
Yeah, he's self-disciplined. It's not because discipline is a path. I go back to that image again. When you're doing a set in the gym, and you want to do 10 reps, and you're on the 9th rep and you're about to give up, but you push yourself and you do the 10th one. Ezehu Gibor, who's strong, he disciplined himself.
Yeah.
The joy is not number 10. The joy is I broke through my
nature,
place, my nature, and so forth. And it's not only because, pat me on the back, it's because of it. I am really expressing my own power,
my own supernatural being.
Right. And I think that when we're going, as we started in the beginning, I think that to a large degree, the more structured we become, and when I say this, and let me warn, I'm not saying structure into mitzvahs. The more structured we become, the more threat individual freedom is.
The more, I missed a word, the more structured, the more direct, is that what you said?
The more structured religion in a headspace.
Or the more of a threat individual freedom is.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll show you that as an example, is that was one of the incredible differences, if we can talk this way, of the Rebbe. Jonathan Sachs, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, was famous for saying the Rebbe didn't make followers, he made leaders.
Leaders, right.
Which means he wanted to empower everybody. He screamed out, why are you doing what you're doing just because I tell you?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, what is that? And that's why I say our focus should be on, do we know who we are? Clarion calls that the Rebbe spoke about in 1991, 92, was based on a medrash that said, "Another megius man gulaschem, humble, your redemption has arrived." Why does it say humble people? Why doesn't it say what?
Is that, would you equate that to nafshika afar lakoltia, that you nullify the ego? Well, you tell me. Why does it say humble people?
No, I'm saying it in the negative.
Mm.
You don't realize that you have it in your hand. You're an anav. It says in the Gemara that the anivus, the humbleness of one of the sages, caused the destruction of the temple.
Mm. I've been thinking for a long time that there's a bittul, like it says in Tanya that there's that the Esav is Gvura of Klipa, Yishmael is Chesed of Klipa. I've been thinking for years and years that Yaakov is bittul of Klipa. That there's an over humility. That humility can be a positive, but when it reaches a point where it becomes a negative.
I think people, this is one of my hot topics. We speak about it on Street for Bregan all the time, and that is the definition of bittul.
Yeah.
To be blunt, I hate to say this, but I'll say it anyways. I think a lot of people think bittul is a Christian bittul.
Bittul meaning humbleness. Yeah,
meaning
humility. Yeah.
may the meek inherit the earth, the world. Bittul
Yeah.
means if I dip into a consciousness, I have to let go of my lower consciousness. So when I do that, am I more powerful? Am I more flexible than before? Am I more
Obvious.
talented than before? That's bittul. What
Yeah.
is bittul too? Too. Not the emphasis is not on your not. The emphasis is, but of course, the lower level wants to hold on to its ego place, so it's thinking already. When I get to the higher place, I'll be even better than I am now. But when in a real bittul, you lose that desire, so to speak, and that way of looking at it until you get to the next level. And
Which is
now
why,
you take on the power of the higher level.
I'm assuming, um, you push back on the word path, because that experience of letting go of the self can only happen in the moment,
Yeah,
letting
and
go of the ego.
but that, in other words, that is, one of the things that I think happens to people now when I'm going to the Chabad world is we expect, full success spiritually. So if I know most of my day I'm going to be this a regular everyday slob, so why would I think for 35 seconds where I pray and meditate on God when I know that why should I? This is what the Alter Rebbe speaks about in Tanya. Why should I go on a diet when I know Pesach's coming and I'm going to eat like a pig? So therefore, I'm right now. I'm going to go eat like a pig. Always, that's how human nature comes up with that little
They
sort
did
of.
a study in Weight Watchers a long time ago to figure out what was the main thing that caused people to break their diet, and it was exactly that, the thought that I'm not going to keep it in the future anyway, so I might as well eat now.
Right, and
Exactly what.
so therefore, I'm not going to meditate for 30 seconds because I know I'm going to be a bum for the rest of the day. Well, yeah, thank you very much. So I'm not going to lift. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to lift 1,000 pounds today, if anyone can do that. 500 pounds today, because so therefore I'm not going to go to the gym and lift 8 pounds. I mean, this is faulty thinking.
Yeah.
So I think it is very much moment to moment, not a path. Because I think that if we think in terms of long term, I don't know. I know this is like a illegal subject to bring up. It's like I'm now giving the example of the gym, right? I started going to the gym in the last 18 months. I almost kind of died. I had a death experience, so to speak, at COVID, and it woke me up. I wasn't sick, but it was a mental situation that happened. And it was quite fascinating. And so I started going to the gym. I have never done that in my life. I'm now in better shape than I was for 50, 60 years.
Wow.
And a long way to go still. But I say to myself every day, who are you trying to fool, Reuven? You're 65 years old. You got how many years left anyways? Why don't you just enjoy yourself? Eat that, eat this, do that, do that. Don't go. You're gonna. So what are you gonna gain? You're gonna gain a couple of months more. You're gonna, whatever, whatever stuff comes through my head that. And the way I get around that is no, 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 no. It's how do I feel right this second? What's my work right now? I want to be energized now. We're all gonna meet an end, whenever that end is, barring even when Mashiach comes and with Tchias Mason, there's an end in the middle of all that. For apparently.
I mean, the Rebbe
So
said maybe not, but who knows?
yeah, okay. So but that to me is, that to me is cool. One of the things that always amazed me is that I don't know for those people who don't know who the Rebbe was, but the Rebbe used to get like letters a day in big mail bags. People asking for advice, telling him their problems and their pain and suffering and dealing with death and mental illness, everything. And he read some pretty bad stuff. All whatever nature could throw at you. every day, 1,000 letters at the towards the later years. And he was the most upbeat, energized, 90 years old, leading a pack of 30-year-old like just wanted to go to sleep. And he got them energized. It was Mashiach is any second, or it's here already, as he started to tell us, and so forth. How do you balance that? Because you know what? The Rebbe cried over those letters. He didn't just live in a bubble. He cried over those. He felt that pain. So how do you have both? That's like living in the moment at the same time. That when you run out of Egypt, you're still carrying your stuff, but you made that decision to get out, and that's where the power is, I think.
So basically, summing it up, you're saying that the outer manifestation of the world that we all long for, kind of like the founders, the Declaration of Independence said, one of them said, a republic if you can keep it. It's like
Right.
freedom, redemption if you can keep it, if you're a match for it. Would you agree that that's basically the bottom line of this whole
Yeah,
concept?
I think, so to speak, that the Rebbe, as they say, put through the floor and said, "It's in your hands, because that is Mashiach. Is that it's in your hands. Your messianic spark of your own self, and the struggle is keeping it, like you said, because we lose it and get it and lose it and get it, and it comes back and forth, and
And some of us, I think many of us have never gotten it yet. It starts in that back and forth process once you're actually in that process.
right.
But many people are still very, very, it's interesting because a huge portion of the world is so hooked to the outside and therefore so easy to manipulate. This is your enemy, get out on the street and fight them. It's like we're in two different, in a way, thought streams in two different directions. One is hunkering down and standing against or pushing against, and the other is hopefully looking for more freedom, no matter how imperfectly. I mean, I'm assuming ultimately everybody will, but
You see that so amazingly is the Rebbe's opening up the discussion of Jew and non-Jew working together. Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noach, the 7 Noahide laws, and in other ways, which was definitely revolutionary, historically speaking. But the way he explained it was, it's always been that way, but Jews were usually running away from a sword and a rifle, so we didn't turn around and say, work together.
hey, partners.
So,
Yeah,
things have changed, and that was a hard shift, and I think it still is hard.
it still is hard.
I have a few things that I don't know if I have something that I've detected. There are a number of things that we didn't fulfill as Hasidim of the Rebbe. One was Eretz Israel.
What about it?
It sank that you can't give back anything, and you're not here to negotiate the Holy Land, and it is a holy land, and it's all wrapped up, all in nation. So what the way the Torah starts, and it's good for Jews as well as non-Jews. That's like a difficult one. I'm talking about as an organization now. The other one is conversion according to halacha. One is Sheva mitzvahs b'nei noach. The 7 Noahide laws was never taken on as an organizational thrust.
Right.
A fourth one is Mashiach. And a fifth one, more personal, and that is 4 shots of l'chaim and nothing more. Those were the 5 things that we struggled with.
Hmm.
And I think they're all very indicative of different things, but um, all of them come down again to who am I?
So I know I told you an hour and we're a little over, but could you sum up in a minute or two or three by just talking about what you see as the path forward to get from where people are to where this discussion is pointing?
Okay, I'll be very, I don't know if the word is simple, but on a very practical level. I believe in the following equation. Your sense and your belief and your feeling of redemption is equal to your sense and your belief and your feeling of the truth of Hasidus.
Mm.
What I mean by that is, if you look into the first page of Tanya, Tanya is like the basic book of all Chabad Hasidim and all of explained mysticism, we'll call it in the Jewish mystical tradition in our generation. He writes a prefatory letter to the book called the Hakdama, a preface. And the Alter Rebbe, the author, writes, he quotes a verse from Isaiah that says, I'm writing to the ones who are searching for God and chasing righteousness. Okay? I'm searching for God and I'm chasing righteousness.
Right.
Those are the people, right? And those are the people he's calling to in this explanation why he wrote the book. Itself, by the way, is interesting because he was replacing private audience that he would have with people, which is another kind of a feeling of you're going to do it for me. Going to the Rebbe, he's going to lift me up and inspire me. And he's saying, that's stopping now. I'm going to put everything I have in a book. And that was what he was addressing actually in this preface. So I always thought to myself, why does he start with that verse? And my experience, whatever it means to anybody, has been that commensurate with how much you're looking for God and searching righteousness, how that much is real, how much, whether or not this is bliss, cardboard. In other words, if it's just academic, if you take out that's my intention, that's what I'm looking for, is I'm searching for God, I'm searching for my God in me, I'm searching for my righteousness. If that's off the table, then you have a very dry book.
So everything has to be personal. That's what it comes down to. Everything is about you. Everything is about your unconditional, your unconditional.
We have to make an intention and a decision. This is what my trajectory is. You know, one of my business coaches has a great example of that he was learning how to drive a racing car. So he took lessons. So he gets into the driver's seat, and there's the teacher on the side, and the teacher tells him, you know what? The first thing you're going to learn is how to come out of a spin. Because when you're going 250 miles an hour, man, you are going to spin. And what's going to happen is you're going to be staring at that wall at 250 miles an hour. And you're just learn how to look to where you want to go, not staring at the wall. So he tells over about how it took him so many times. The guy would have a button and would put the car into a spin, the teacher, and he would be staring at the wall. You're going, I can't hit this wall. I can't hit this wall. I can't hit this. That's how we do things. No. You have to look to where you're going to. So if you want to continue on the same path and road in any of your limitations, we're in Pesach now, Passover, and if you want to stay that way, you're going to be eating cardboard when you go to this. But if you're really inspired about I don't know what it means to touch God. I don't even know. You want to say I don't know if there's a God. You want to say that you doubt there's a God. Whatever your thing is, but I'm going to make him my search. and I'm going to make geula with, and that is geula, that is redemption. That's the first step, and it starts with you. Don't look for indications outside, because the world is going to say to you, I ain't budging. Egypt is going to say, you're staying right where you are.
This is beautiful. I have to say it was eye-opening, mind-opening, heart-opening, and probably has to be listened to more than once. I hope we'll have a chance to do it again. And thank you so much.
Thank you for
Really,
having
we're in the time of freedom, so hopefully this will all accelerate.
I hope we join you in Svas very shortly.
That would be great. That would be great. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow. Take care.